This episode of Doom Patrol is my favorite. It was the one that got me the most emotionally engaged. And I became sad because I was emotionally engrossed and invested. Because as someone who read all the Doom Patrol comics, this episode had like a lot of, past members and villains, pop up and appear. And I was really excited. I was like, ooh, there's that character. There's this character. And I wanted to see how the show was bringing them to life. Because I didn't know that they were coming. That was part of it. Part of it was a surprise and the shock, a happy surprise. Because I know that there have been articles saying that I had seen headlines here and there that, this old member of the Doom Patrol was going to show up on the show, but I didn't read in detail. So, I didn't pay attention to, which episode a certain character would show up in and how they would be portrayed. So when like old members like Minto, Celsius, and Lodestone showed up in this episode, I was very surprised and I was like, ooh, I was really excited to see how they came off. And then by the end of the episode, when I found out that their lives were all broken and shattered by Mr. Nobody and they became basically shadows of their former selves at the end of their lives, I got sad. And I was, I felt bad for them because these are characters that I was excited for and I wanted to see what the show was going to do with them. And then I was like, man, so that's what they did with them? And, I wasn't this disappointed so much. I mean, I was happy to see them when I could, but because Mr. Nobody is the person who destroyed their lives, it made me, feel bad for them and I want this version of the Doom Patrol, the current one with, the Chief and Rita and Robot Man and stuff, to really take them down for revenge for what they did to some of my favorite classic obscure characters. I'm a fan of a lot of obscure characters in DC Comics. And when I see them brought to life, because I think they're the last ones who are ever going to be in movies and TV shows, I get excited. And then when bad things happen to them, I'm like, man, but I don't know. I don't blame the writers. I blame Mr. Nobody. For some reason, this makes me really want the Doom Patrol to defeat him in the end. Because he destroyed one era of the Doom Patrol. And, he's bothering this one. And he's so all-powerful. It's like I really want them to take him down. And so, I was very emotionally engaged in, seeing what happened to people that I like. And, this episode really grabbed me more than any of the others. And so I'm just here for Doom Patrol, forever now. I really want to see what's going to happen. And they name dropped some villains, too. There was when Minto was with Rita in that... When they went to Doom Manor or whatever, and he was with Rita in that, trophy room, they mentioned the Ultimax case, and, that brain case, and that, the brain escaped, and, the Brotherhood of Evil was mentioned. And the Brotherhood of Evil is, the Doom Patrol's classic villain team. I think the Brotherhood of Evil have fought... Well, they have. I know for a fact they fought the Doom Patrol more consistently than Mr. Nobody has. Although Mr. Nobody, I guess, has become more famous. But, the Doom Patrol's original bad guys were the Brotherhood of Evil. One of their original bad guys. And Mr. Nobody, before he became Mr. Nobody in the comics, was a member of the Brotherhood of Evil. So they're probably going to link those two together in the show, too. Because the Brotherhood of Evil are in the show from the Doom Patrol's past. And Mr. Nobody's from the Doom Patrol's past. And I think he mentioned that he used to be a member of them or something in a previous episode. So he is linked to them and the Chief. And what I found is interesting is this episode continues, people from the team finding out how cold and I guess sinister the Chief can be or was in his past. Because, Jane, when she talks to Joshua Clay, another former Doom Patrol member I was happy to see, aka Tempest, in the house, she says to him, all these other old Doom Patrol members have gone insane or, they're just really broken PTSD or whatever because of Mr. Nobody did to their heads. And she asks him, so did the Chief visit all these people? And, Joshua Clay says sometimes or whatever, but not really that much. And so she's like, so we just abandoned them and he was going to send me here. And this is another story thread in the show alluding to the fact that the Chief, has a very dark, cold side. Interesting, though, because I thought this version of the Doom Patrol already knew that. Because in the Titans, the episode where the Doom Patrol first appeared in the Titan show, the Chief was portrayed as a darker character who was kind of a mad scientist character, and it seemed like the Doom Patrol knew all that, right? Back when Beast Boy was with them. So the fact that the people on this show here seem to kind of maybe see him in a more positive or benevolent light, when they seem to be more wise to what he was really like in Titans, there seems to be a disparity there. But, whatever. It's a good show. They're both good shows, so we can forgive them for any kind of clunkiness in between, continuity threads. Speaking of, Beast Boy and Minto and stuff, in the comics, Elasti-Woman, Rita, and Minto got married, and they adopted Beast Boy. They were his adoptive parents. I don't think the show timeline's going to have that, but they did continue the fact that Minto and Rita had something going on. In the comics, their relationship didn't really end well either, and it also hasn't on the show, as Rita alluded to. But, in the comics, Minto, had the psycho helmet and mental powers, but he would go crazy later on. In the old comics, Minto wasn't really crazy. He was just, this really overconfident rich guy who was in love with Rita. But then later writers and later comic books made him crazy and destructive. And I think the show might kind of sort of went with that version of Minto when he was doing his mass illusion to mess with everybody's heads and, having a mental breakdown. So, they portrayed Minto kind of sort of like that in the show. But originally he did seem like maybe he was kind of a well-meaning person. But, life and Mr. Nobody wrecked him. And then there was Celsius. Celsius was the woman who said that she was Niles Calder's wife. And, Joshua says in the show she wasn't his wife. That was all part of the fantasy. But in the comics, she was married to Niles briefly. He never loved her, though. He was using her as one of his experiments. It had something to do with just wrecking people's lives in order to make them better or something. Some weird psycho logic. But he married her for a little while in this fake ceremony in India. And then he basically ditched her. But she had a pining for him forever after that, and she joined the Doom Patrol later to find him, as part of her way to find him. And she basically kind of led or financed a new version of the Doom Patrol in the comics. And as for Rhea Jones, the lady she was the one laying in the bed with the knives swirling around her. In the comics, she was Lodestone. She had magnetic powers. She was another member of the Doom Patrol with Celsius. And Joshua Clay, the Doctor, aka Tempest, was a member of the Doom Patrol. And he had powers to shoot basically energy out of his hands and fly. But later on, and he used to be a very active member of the team, but later on he kind of sort of retired and just wanted to walk around and be at a desk, or just not be an active in the field kind of person. He wanted to just be on the sidelines. And so that was basically his character in later years for the most part. And, those were all the members I can think of that this show referenced, but I thought it was awesome to see them back. I hope to see more of them, but given that 3 of them are older now and kind of mentally, wrecked, I don't really think we'll see Celsius, Lodestone, or Minto be too active in the show anymore unless it's in flashbacks. I would love it if they could come back and, be active members of the team, at least either as recurring characters or, maybe to join as regular characters in the future. But given the way that the show has kind of depicted those characters, I don't see that happening unless they do some kind of time travel thing. But, it was nice. And I really felt sad for them by the time the show ended. And, nice job to the Doom Patrol writers to make me feel that way. And, I can't wait to see how the team gets out of this. How they eventually wind up defeating Mr. Nobody, who seems like a god in this show. But great stuff. I will hope to see more stuff like this going forward. There's other members of the Doom Patrol who could show up too. So, let's bring them on. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube and subscribe to the channel because I appreciate your viewership, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.